Looks good. Time for a coffee, maybe some dessert. All right, now let's do a video. A quick update, because there's a lot of little things going on. So I want to do a video this Friday midday in Athens, and let's see, where should we begin? Let's start with the drone that crashed in Zagreb. So this drone crashed in Zagreb, Croatia. And everyone's like, where the hell did this come from? Well, the president of Croatia has said that this came from Ukraine. So it looks like a drone was launched from Ukraine, probably somewhere in the west of Ukraine. And I guess it went astray and it ended up in Zagreb. That was an interesting, odd bit of news, but I guess it happens. Anyway, that's the story that we're getting from the president of Croatia with regards to this drone that crashed in Zagreb. The other bit of news that we have a lot of little things, significant things though. Let's see, the Russians have captured and they control a town close to Mariupol called Volnovaka, which is a little north of Mariupol. And this falls in line with what we have been reporting on the Duran and what Alexander reported on his channel, that Mariupol is getting cleared out. It's getting mopped up and cleared out of Ukraine military and Azov forces. How long that's going to take and what that means, it's a tough situation. A lot of humanitarian corridors that have started and stopped in Mariupol over the past couple of days. Have meant that it's going to be a tough go, but the fact that they've got this like northern town, which is about a population of like 22,000, means that they are solidifying. The Russian forces are strengthening their grip in and around Mariupol, and we'll see what happens there in the next couple of days. Mariupol is an important city, and we'll see. That's the report that we get out of the east. And out of the west, we actually saw the Russian military conduct strikes on the towns of Lutsk and Ivano-Frankivsk. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But these are towns way in the west of Ukraine. This is about as far west as we've seen the Russian military operate. And these were, what I understand, missile strikes, and they took out an airbase, an airport, a local airport and an airbase, where, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, drones were being launched from that airbase. So it's significant because we're seeing signs that the Russian military is starting to look at the west of Ukraine. I mean, I don't want to say they're starting military operations. I was about to say we're starting to see signs that maybe they might be starting something in the west. No, we don't know that. We just know that they took out an airbase. A couple of things it could mean. Obviously, it means that they believed drones were being launched from that airbase, so they took action against that airbase. And the other thing it could mean is that the Russian military is just kind of sending a signal to NATO, to Blinken. Kamala Harris was just in Poland, and all of these people are trying to figure out, how do we get weapons into Ukraine? How do we get weapons from Poland or from the neighboring countries into Ukraine, across the border and into the west of Ukraine, and then get them into the conflict? And so maybe this was a signal saying, you know what, we're watching you guys, and whatever activity we see with regards to weapons coming in, we're going to take them out. So I'm sure the Russian military was also sending a signal saying they have control of the airspace. They have their targets locked in, and if they see any activity with weapons coming in or being launched from airports in the west, then they'll take action. So anyway, I think that's a significant bit of news. We also have the news that Vladimir Putin, with the recommendation of Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, has approved using volunteers to fight in this conflict. Now, the reason he said that, and I listened to his speech, the reason Vladimir Putin said that he will approve Shoigu's recommendation to allow volunteers, supposedly Russia has 16,000 applications to come fight in the war, and I imagine you're looking at a lot of battle-tested, battle-ready fighters, specifically from Syria. But the reason Putin gave for allowing this, for green-lighting this idea, this proposal from Shoigu, is that the NATO powers and the West, what he calls the Western, the collective West, the Western nations, Putin said, have allowed mercenaries to fight on behalf of the Zelensky regime and on the side of Ukraine. So Vladimir Putin is basically saying, well, if you guys allow mercenaries to come into combat, and Putin stressed that this was illegal. I mean, I saw his speech. He said that this violates much of the rules of law of war and of law. He said that if you guys allow these mercenaries in, well, we can do the same. Now, is Russia serious? Is Putin serious? Are they really going to allow 16,000 volunteers if they have that many applications? Are they going to allow 16,000 volunteers into the conflict? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's just kind of saying, well, if you guys can do it, well, if you guys are doing it, then we can do it as well. But maybe he will. I will say this. I'm sure there's a lot of Syrian soldiers who definitely understand what war is like. I mean, they fought a brutal war against the jihadists backed by the Obama White House. So I'm sure they could come in and do some serious damage. But I don't know if Russia would do that. I don't even think they need to do that. But you know, Putin made a point of saying, because the West is doing it, well, we can do it as well. So I thought that was an interesting bit of news as well. And finally, I'm going to put up two maps. The first map I'm going to put up is a map from The Guardian. And this is how they see the conflict taking place. And you can see from the map that it shows the Russians making very little progress. Pretty much no progress. They seem bogged down. The operation seems like it has stalled and it's a failure. And you know, the collective West, the mainstream media, is really focusing on. Let me go this way, straight up here. Let's go straight up the hill. The Western mainstream media is really focusing on Kiev. You know, that's the narrative. The siege of Kiev. The siege of Kiev, and you have Zelensky, the resistance hero, the president, standing his ground in Kiev, and he's going to defend the city and lead the Ukrainians to victory. And the news is that the Russians are trying to get into the city, but with each effort they try to make to enter the city, you know, the Ukraine forces, they annihilate them. They annihilate, you know, tank columns, and they just beat the Russians back with each effort they make. The Russians are disorganized, they're confused, they have no idea what's going on, and the Ukrainians are putting up an incredible resistance, and they're preventing the siege of Kiev, because in the collective West, that was the goal of this operation, to take out Kiev, to take out Zelensky, and to declare victory. And that's the narrative that you see, and in the maps, you're really not looking at anything going on in the east of Ukraine, in and around Mariupol, Odessa. You know, none of that stuff is really that important. It'll get a mention every now and then, but it's all about Kiev, right? Everything is about Kiev. And you have all the journalists that are, let's walk this way, and all the journalists that are in Kiev right now, well, they're reporting that, you know, everything's about Kiev. This is where the action is, because they're sitting in Kiev, they're speaking with, they're getting the briefs from the Ministry of Defense and Communication from the Kiev government. And so they're reporting back to Fox News and CNN that it's all about Kiev. I mean, think about it. They're in Kiev, they're staying at the hotels in Kiev 2-3 times a day. I'm sure they're getting briefed by the Zelensky government, by the Ministry of Communications or Defense. And they're telling the reporters, okay, this is what happened. We just took out a major column of tanks. We beat them back. the resistance is holding strong, the Russians are going to be defeated, and so the reporters are getting this information, and they report it back. And so that's kind of what you're seeing on the collective West side. On the Russian side of things, and I'm going to put up a map from the Russian side of things, and this map shows a very different story. It shows a lot of action in the east. Definitely shows that Kiev is surrounded, but really the focus is on the east, the southeast, and all across the shoreline leading up to Odessa and potentially all the way to Transnistria. And they're showing that that's where the battle is. Yes, Kiev is encircled, but the narrative coming from Russia is that we've got Kiev encircled and we're going to create humanitarian corridors. We're not going to siege the city. We want to negotiate with Zelensky, and our soldiers are staying put. They're just sitting around the city and they're waiting. And a lot of the fighting is focused on the east of Ukraine, Donetsk, Lugansk, making those provinces, uniting those provinces and making them whole, gaining territory around there, and freeing up Mariupol and working their way down to Odessa. So you get two very, very different pictures. On the one hand, on the Western side of things, the mainstream media, you're getting the narrative of the siege of Kiev and the fight for the capital city, and that is the ultimate goal. On the Russian side of things, you get the narrative that, this is all about taking out those 60,000 soldiers in the east. You have, 4 cauldrons which have been created, 4 encirclements, and the fighting there is the fighting that's taking place is to crush the bulk of the Ukraine army, which is bogged down and trapped, surrounded in the east of Ukraine, and they're going to take that army out. They're going to take that military out, and then they can deal with Zelensky and Kiev, and most likely deal with the west of the country as well. And those are the two different narratives, and I just wanted to kind of put that out there so it gives everyone an idea as to two different wars and two different conflicts that we may be seeing, that we are definitely seeing, depending on where you go to get your news and where you live. Because remember, if you live in the West, and if you live in a country that's in Europe, like I do, I'm in Greece, you can't really get many sources coming out of Russia. And with various decrees that the Kremlin has signed, they're going to make it harder for people in Russia to get the narrative from the West. So, you can look at the maps, look at the information that is coming out, and you can decide how things are going. Is it more in the West's favor? Is it more in the Russians' favor? The Guardian paints one picture, Russian media, and I don't even want to say that the map that I put up is Russian mainstream media. I would say more like Russian-speaking independent media is the map that I put up or that I'm sourcing. But either way, I think everyone gets the idea. Two very, very different stories: the siege of Kiev versus the battle in the east, and we'll see how things unfold over the next week or two. That's the quick update, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. Take care.